Listen, if you've been living under a rock and don't know about the 2 astronauts stranded in space, then you're in for an eye-opening video, man, with this whole situation, everything surrounding it, the parties involved, all of that type of stuff we're going to get into in this video. Let's check it out.
2 astronauts currently on board the International Space Station may have to stay there until next year.
Now to the 8-day trip to space, turning into 8 months. NASA now saying it is keeping 2 astronauts in the space station there until February and not risking bringing them back on Boeing's troubled Starliner.
Boeing employees are humiliated.
NASA again delaying Boeing's debut of its Starliner capsule.
A disappointing day at Cape Canaveral in Florida as NASA was forced to again scrub the first launch of Boeing's Starliner spaceship with astronauts on board.
After NASA announced that 2 astronauts who have been stranded on the International Space Station by the company's troubled Starliner space capsule will have to be rescued by Elon Musk's upstart rival, SpaceX. One worker told the Post,
"There's just a lot of uncertainty about what happens to the Starliner program.
You know, this might not look good right now, but we don't know the end of it yet."
Boeing has faced a lot of technical challenges with developing this vehicle all the way back to, 2019.
When 2 astronauts were launched into space in June, they were supposed to be home in time for the 4th of July. But today, NASA said they'll be in space for the holidays and into the new year.
Butch Wilmore and Suni Williams, who went up the ISS in June for what?
I don't care what you say or what you talk about, bro. Like, missing out on these holidays at this stage of my life, like, holidays are important. Family is important. So I can only imagine what's going through their mind, because I know how I would be dealing with it. You can say all you want. Oh, they've been trained for this. Oh, this was in the back of their mind that something could go wrong. Absolutely. But it's still, the fact remains that I'm missing time with my family. Birthdays, Thanksgiving, Christmas, holidays, whatever, New Year's. Like, no, man. No, I would be frustrated up there in space. I can't lie to you.
What was supposed to be an 8-day mission. We'll have to wait another 6 months until a SpaceX Crew Dragon spacecraft can carry them safely home, because their original ride is leaking helium and has problems with its thrusters. The Florida-based staffer with Boeing's space program said the decision was the latest blow for the aerospace giant, which is already suffering backlash from a slew of commercial flight incidents earlier this year. "We have had so many embarrassments lately, we're under a microscope. This just made it like 100 times worse," one worker, speaking on the condition of anonymity, said. "We hate SpaceX," he added. "We talk ST about them all the time, and now they're bailing us out. It's shameful. I'm embarrassed. I'm horrified," the employee said. With morale in the toilet, the worker claimed that many in Boeing are blaming NASA for the humiliation. Boeing maintains its Starliner craft could safely get the astronauts back to Earth after putting them on the ISS during its maiden crewed flight on June 5th.
So while we have people up there stranded, everybody's going to do this now? Point fingers? The Spider-Man meme? Everybody's going to do that now? It's not the time for that.
However, NASA decided to turn to SpaceX for help after more than 2 months of testing the craft, which is still docked at the ISS. The Boeing craft suffered a helium leak just before liftoff, with the leaks getting worse when the ship docked at the ISS. The craft also suffered several failures to its thrusters. While many of those issues had been mitigated since then, NASA said the safest decision is for Wilmore and Williams to return as part of SpaceX's Dragon Crew 9 mission in February 2025. "We believed that Starliner could bring them home safely, but NASA didn't want to chance it," the employee said. "They have their own PR issues and don't need 2 dead astronauts," he added. "But we didn't think that there would be dead astronauts. We'd never have recommended that they use us if they thought that it was going to be unsafe for them." Steve Stick, NASA's Commercial Crew Program Manager, said that the talks with Boeing came down to a little disagreement about risk. Boeing did not comment on NASA's decision to rely on SpaceX. Instead, the company told the Post it was focusing on making sure Starliner can return to Earth intact. Boeing continues to focus first and foremost on the safety of the crew and spacecraft, the company said. Boeing has spent about $1.5 billion in cost overruns beyond the initial $4.5 billion contract it secured with NASA, which is hoping to make Starliner its second mode of transportation to the ISS alongside SpaceX's Crew Dragon. Space exploration has always been a frontier marked by both incredible achievements and harrowing challenges. From the days of the Apollo missions to the modern era of private space ventures, humanity's quest to reach the stars has been fraught with both triumphs and tragedies. One of the key players in this modern space race is Elon Musk, the visionary behind SpaceX, whose efforts have dramatically reshaped the space industry. But amidst the accolades and milestones, there are darker tales that often go unnoticed by the public. One such story involves the Boeing Starliner, a spacecraft intended to transport astronauts to and from the International Space Station, ISS. Recently, Elon Musk revealed a terrifying discovery related to the Starliner and the plight of astronauts who became stranded as a result of its shortcomings. This revelation not only sheds light on the critical risks involved in space travel, but also raises serious questions about the future of space exploration. Chapter 1. The Rise of Private Space Exploration. In the early 2000s, space exploration was primarily the domain of government agencies like NASA, Roscosmos, and ESA. However, the landscape began to change with the advent of private companies entering the fray. Elon Musk's SpaceX, founded in 2002, was one of the first private firms to make significant strides in this field. With a vision of reducing space transportation costs and enabling the colonization of Mars, SpaceX quickly became a leader in the industry. Around the same time, Boeing, a long-established aerospace giant, was also looking to make its mark in the realm of space exploration. In partnership with NASA, Boeing developed the CST-100 Starliner, a spacecraft designed to carry astronauts to the ISS and beyond. The Starliner was seen as a direct competitor to SpaceX's Dragon capsule, and the two companies were locked in a fierce race to prove their technology was superior.
Hence all the negative press and everything that SpaceX has been getting. When you have a direct competitor, oh, mud is gonna sling. Mud is gonna sling. So imagine what's gonna happen if, or I like to say when, they successfully bring these astronauts home on one of SpaceX spacecrafts. Imagine what it's gonna be then. And then once that happens, oh, you might as well book it, bro. Mars is inevitable at that point. It's inevitable. Once this is taken care of, Mars is inevitable.
This competition was part of NASA's Commercial Crew program, which aimed to restore America's ability to launch astronauts into space from U.S. soil after the retirement of the Space Shuttle in 2011. The program sought to foster innovation and competition by funding multiple private companies to develop crewed spacecraft. Chapter 2. The Boeing Starliner, a rocky start. Boeing's Starliner program got off to a rocky start. The spacecraft, which was intended to be a reliable and safe means of transporting astronauts to the ISS, faced numerous technical challenges and delays. In December 2019, the Starliner's first uncrewed orbital flight test, OFT-1, ended in failure due to a software glitch that caused the spacecraft to miss its intended orbit. Although the spacecraft was able to return to Earth safely, the mission was deemed only a partial success, and Boeing faced significant scrutiny over the issues that had arisen. The failure of the OFT-1 mission led to an extensive investigation by NASA and Boeing to determine the root cause of the problem. It was discovered that the Starliner's software contained multiple errors, some of which could have led to a catastrophic failure had they not been identified and corrected. The investigation also raised concerns about the overall safety and reliability of the Starliner, leading to calls for further testing before the spacecraft could be certified for crewed missions. Despite these setbacks, Boeing remained committed to the Starliner program, and in 2021, the company attempted a second uncrewed test flight, OFT-2. However, this mission was also plagued by technical issues, including problems with the spacecraft's propulsion system. As a result, the OFT-2 mission was postponed, further delaying the Starliner's entry into service. Chapter 3. The Astronauts Left Behind. As Boeing struggled to get the Starliner program back on track, the delays began to have real-world consequences. In early 2023, a group of astronauts found themselves stranded on the ISS due to the ongoing issues with the Starliner. These astronauts had originally been scheduled to return to Earth aboard the Starliner, but the repeated delays and technical failures meant that their return was indefinitely postponed. This situation presented NASA and its partners with a serious dilemma. The ISS has a limited capacity to support astronauts for extended periods, and the stranded crew members were facing increasing challenges as their supplies dwindled and their health began to deteriorate. The psychological toll of being stranded in space, far from their families, and uncertain about when or if they would return home, was also a significant concern.
Now that's my thing right there, like, cause not sometimes, or I ain't gonna say sometimes, like I know what, but what I've seen before is when they brought astronauts back on one of those space missions, they had to quarantine them for a certain time. And within that time, they ran tests and you come back different. Like your body goes through a change, something happens. So I'm also interested to see what type of change happened to these astronauts while they were there 6 months, 7 months, 8 months, however long it is when they get back. How much different they are than when they left. I'm definitely going to be glued to the screen to see it, or whenever they release the results.
In response to this crisis, NASA and SpaceX worked together to develop a contingency plan to bring the stranded astronauts back to Earth. SpaceX's Dragon capsule, which had been successfully flying crewed missions since 2020, was prepared for an emergency rescue mission. However, this plan was not without its risks, as the Dragon capsule had not been specifically designed for such a mission, and there were concerns about the feasibility of transferring the astronauts from the ISS to the Dragon under emergency conditions. Chapter 4. Elon Musk's alarming revelation. As the situation with the stranded astronauts became increasingly dire, Elon Musk stepped forward with a revelation that shocked the space community. During a press conference in early 2024, Musk revealed that SpaceX had uncovered evidence of serious flaws in the Starliner's design that had not been publicly disclosed by Boeing. These flaws, Musk claimed, posed a significant risk to the safety of any crew that flew aboard the Starliner. According to Musk, SpaceX...
If that's true, then that may be the nail in the coffin, man. If that's true, like I said before, man, Boeing they didn't need another bad headline. So that's not going to be good if they prove that to be true.
Engineers had been collaborating with NASA on the contingency plan to rescue the stranded astronauts when they discovered the issues with the Starliner. During their analysis of the spacecraft's design, the SpaceX team identified multiple vulnerabilities in the Starliner's propulsion and life support systems. These vulnerabilities, Musk warned, could lead to catastrophic failures under certain conditions, potentially endangering the lives of any astronauts on board. Musk's revelation sparked a firestorm of controversy. Boeing and NASA were quick to respond, with both organizations insisting that the Starliner was safe and that any issues identified by SpaceX were being addressed. However, the damage was done. The public and media were now questioning Boeing's transparency and the overall safety of the Starliner program. Chapter 5. The fallout from Musk's revelation. The fallout from Musk's revelation was immediate and far-reaching. The Starliner program, already under intense scrutiny, faced even greater criticism from both the public and government officials. There were calls for a comprehensive review of the program, with some even suggesting that the Starliner be scrapped altogether in favor of relying solely on SpaceX's Dragon capsule for crewed missions. Boeing, for its part, launched an internal investigation to address the concerns raised by Musk. The company also worked closely with NASA to implement additional safety measures and to conduct further testing of the Starliner's systems. However, these efforts did little to restore public confidence in the program, and the Starliner's future remained uncertain. The situation also had broader implications for the commercial crew program as a whole. The program had been touted as a model of public-private partnership, with the goal of fostering competition and innovation in the space industry. However, the challenges faced by Boeing's Starliner raised questions about whether the program's goals were being met and whether private companies were being held to the same safety standards as government-led missions. Chapter 6: The Rescue Mission. As the controversy surrounding the Starliner unfolded, NASA and SpaceX continued their efforts to rescue the stranded astronauts on the ISS. In March 2024, SpaceX successfully launched a Dragon capsule on a mission to bring the astronauts home. The rescue mission was a complex and delicate operation, requiring precise coordination between the ISS crew, NASA Mission Control, and the SpaceX team. The Dragon capsule docked with the ISS, and the stranded astronauts were safely transferred aboard. After spending several months in space, the astronauts were finally able to return to Earth, bringing an end to their ordeal. The successful completion of the rescue mission was hailed as a triumph for SpaceX and a testament to the company's capabilities. However, the rescue mission also highlighted the ongoing challenges facing the commercial crew program. While SpaceX had proven itself to be a reliable partner, the issues with the Starliner raised concerns about the overall sustainability of the program. There were growing calls for NASA to reevaluate its approach to commercial spaceflight and to consider alternative options for ensuring the safety and reliability of crewed missions. Chapter 7: The Broader Implications for Space Exploration. The events surrounding the Boeing Starliner and the stranded astronauts had broader implications for the future of space exploration. One of the key lessons learned from this episode was the importance of transparency and accountability in the space industry. The revelation of the flaws in the Starliner's design underscored the need for rigorous oversight and independent verification of safety standards, particularly when human lives are at stake. The controversy also raised questions about the role of private companies in space exploration. While the commercial crew program had been designed to foster competition and innovation, the issues with the Starliner highlighted the potential risks of relying on private companies to carry out critical space missions.
It's so interesting how all this information comes out now. Now we hear about the private companies and the people behind the scene. Why? Why is that? Like, this stuff is all strategic, in my opinion.
Some critics argued that NASA should take a more hands-on approach to ensure that safety and reliability are prioritized over profit and competition. In addition, the events surrounding the Starliner had implications for international space collaboration. The ISS is a joint project involving multiple space agencies from around the world, and the stranded astronauts included representatives from several different countries. The challenges faced in rescuing the astronauts underscored the importance of international cooperation and the need for clear protocols and contingency plans in the event of an emergency. Chapter 8: The Future of Boeing and SpaceX. As the dust settled from the Starliner controversy, both Boeing and SpaceX faced critical decisions about their future in the space industry. For Boeing, the priority was to restore confidence in the Starliner program and to address the technical issues that had plagued the spacecraft. The company launched a comprehensive review of the program and implemented additional safety measures, but it remained to be seen whether the Starliner could regain its position as a viable option for crewed spaceflight. For SpaceX, the success of the Dragon capsule in the rescue mission further solidified the company's reputation as a leader in the space industry. With a proven track record of safe and reliable crewed missions, SpaceX was well positioned to continue its dominance in the commercial crew program. However, the company also faced the challenge of maintaining its high standards as it pursued increasingly ambitious projects, such as the Starship program and the colonization of Mars. The events surrounding the Starliner also had implications for the broader space industry. The controversy highlighted the need for continued innovation and investment in space technology, as well as the importance of maintaining rigorous safety standards. As space exploration continued to evolve, it was clear that the industry would need to balance the drive for progress with the need to ensure the safety and well-being of those who venture into space. Chapter 9: lessons learned, and the path forward. The Boeing Starliner controversy served as a stark reminder of the challenges and risks associated with space exploration. While the space industry has made incredible strides in recent years, the events surrounding the stranded astronauts underscored the importance of transparency, accountability, and safety in all aspects of space travel. One of the key lessons learned from this episode was the need for rigorous oversight and independent verification of safety standards. As private companies play an increasingly prominent role in space exploration, it is essential that they are held to the highest standards to ensure the safety of crewed missions. This will require ongoing collaboration between government agencies, private companies, and independent experts to identify and address potential risks. Another important lesson was the need for clear protocols and contingency plans in the event of an emergency. The rescue of the stranded astronauts was a complex and delicate operation that required precise coordination and quick decision-making. Going forward, it will be important for space agencies and companies to develop and regularly update contingency plans to ensure that they are prepared for any potential challenges that may arise during space missions. Finally, the events surrounding the Starliner highlighted the importance of international cooperation in space exploration. The ISS is a joint project involving multiple countries, and the challenges faced during the rescue mission underscored the need for clear communication and collaboration between international partners.
That's an interesting statement, because now I'm wondering, like, what are the other countries, because they're aware of this, they're seeing this. I wonder what they're doing, what their response is, how they're feeling about this, what they're saying about this, and how going forward will they make sure this doesn't happen and they're in this situation. I wonder, has anyone spoken out from any other country? Like, everybody's being hushed right now for some reason.
As space exploration continues to expand beyond low Earth orbit, it will be essential for countries and space agencies to work together to ensure the safety and success of future missions. Chapter 10. The Future of Space Exploration. As we look to the future, it is clear that space exploration will continue to be a frontier marked by both incredible opportunities and significant challenges. The events surrounding the Boeing Starliner serve as a reminder of the risks involved in space travel, but they also highlight the resilience and ingenuity of the space community. The future of space exploration will likely be shaped by continued innovation and investment in new technologies. Companies like SpaceX are already pushing the boundaries of what is possible, with ambitious projects like Starship and the goal of establishing a human presence on Mars. At the same time, other private companies and government agencies are working on their own projects, from lunar exploration to the development of new space habitats. However, as the space industry continues to evolve, it will be important to balance the drive for progress with the need to ensure the safety and well-being of those who venture into space. This will require ongoing collaboration between all stakeholders in the space community, as well as a commitment to maintaining the highest standards of safety and transparency. In conclusion, the revelation of the terrifying discovery on the Boeing Starliner and the subsequent rescue of the stranded astronauts serve as a powerful reminder of the challenges and risks associated with space exploration. But they also underscore the incredible potential of the space industry to overcome these challenges and continue pushing the boundaries of what is possible. As we look to the future, it is clear that space exploration will remain one of humanity's most exciting and challenging endeavors, and one that will continue to captivate our imaginations for generations to come.
Chinese nationals made up more than half the passengers, among them a group of renowned calligraphers returning from an exhibition. 2 Iranians traveling under false pretenses, an Indonesian beginning a new career, and a Malaysian couple returning from their honeymoon were also there. Farik Abdul Hamid, the co-pilot, and seasoned pilot Zahari Ahmad Shah, with over 30 years of service, made up the crew.
Did we just go into Malaysian flight, 370? I think we just kind of ventured into that, which, don't get me wrong, I always love going into that and watching a video on that. So I'm definitely going to continue the video, but y'all definitely, man, This is something we're gonna be watching, monitoring, staying up on top of, checking out videos on this whole stranded astronaut situation, man. It's just something we've never seen before, and I just pray for their safety, make sure they're good, man, and they make it home safe. You know what I'm saying? So, but let's continue back on into this Malaysian flight.
Shipments of electronics and mangosteens, a fruit with a vivid purple hue and sweet taste, were among the mysterious items in the cargo. However, the ones that concerned real people struck a deeper chord. Philip Wood, an IBM executive who was considering relocating to Malaysia, and Patrick Gomez, a flight supervisor with 35 years of experience, were among the passengers. Every passenger on that trip had a distinct backstory and unmet expectations. The extraordinary multinational and transoceanic search for MH370 was conducted. Many possibilities surfaced, from hijacking to mechanical failure, but none offered a satisfactory explanation. 10 years later, a breakthrough was finally made when the plane's final resting place was found deep within the ocean, providing insight into the events of that tragic voyage. As was previously mentioned, on March 8, 2014, a Boeing 777 carrying 239 passengers vanished from sight less than 40 minutes into its journey from Kuala Lumpur to Beijing.
Oh, okay, now I see why they added this to the video. You know what I mean? They're just showing you the things that have happened to Boeing. That's why I said they couldn't afford another bad headline. This situation still is tacked onto their jacket.
Following the plane's abrupt disappearance, a huge search and rescue effort costing millions of dollars took place. But it ended up raising more questions than it did answers. The airline's lack of information left the relatives of those on board struggling with hopelessness. Their agony was incomparable and served as a sobering reminder of the personal cost of such calamities. Even when official attempts ceased, specialists and amateur detectives continued with their look for. After a decade, the question still stands. What became to MH370? Some, like the former British aerospace engineer Richard Godfrey, think we're getting near to the truth. Godfrey has spent the better part of the last 10 years working on this mystery, believing that the location of the plane might be found with one more focused search. This is also the opinion of Vincent Lin, a former University of Tasmania researcher. According to him, the wreckage is located in a deep trench on the same longitude as Penang, some 6,000 meters, below the surface and 1,500 kilometers west of Perth. This theory fits facts gathered over many years of ineffective official searches. The final known communication with MH370 was during a customary aviation procedure called as an airspace handover. But as soon as the aircraft entered Vietnamese territory, it lost all communication and disappeared from public radar. The enigma is further compounded by the analysis of radar and satellite data that indicates the aircraft flew for a further 7 hours. The search was taken up by the Australian Transport Safety Bureau at the request of the Malaysian authorities. Experts and search teams searched the seas, examined data, and pursued every clue for 1,046 days without stopping. The last known acts of the aircraft were disclosed in the Australian Transport Safety Bureau's final report. For 7 more hours after its final contact with the air traffic control, MH370 persisted in its flight. It was finally located off the coast of Sumatra before it turned southward into the Indian Ocean. The plane was never located, despite a massive search that covered millions of square miles of ocean. In this day of sophisticated technology and surveillance, why did a contemporary airliner vanish? And how could this have happened? When there are ambiguous responses, people fill them in. This has happened in the cases of 9/11's, Princess Diana's passing, and JFK's killing. MH370, however, doesn't even have a simple narrative to challenge. The plane seemed to have disappeared into a different dimension. At first, a lot of theories were proposed. Some speculated that it may have been shot down, like Korean Air Flight 007 in 1983 or Iran Air Flight 655 in 1988, while others felt it had landed west of Australia. But MH370 theories started to wane when Malaysia Airlines Flight MH17 was shot down over Ukraine. The fact is that terrible mishaps do happen occasionally. when a plane is shot down, the perpetrators typically come forward quite fast. It is unlikely that a nation could conceal a Boeing 777's demise for several months. According to one scenario, MH370 was misidentified as MH17, which was shot down over Ukraine many months later. Some claim that images taken at the crash site showed MH370, citing details such as window patterns and the position of the Malaysian flag as proof. These assertions were refuted by specialists, who pointed out that the two planes were distinct models with unique characteristics. Another idea concerned a pro-Russian rebel leader who asserted that the remains from the MH17 crash site had been dead for days, sparking rumors that MH370 was filled to the brim with corpses and used to replace the MH17. Aviation specialists have mostly disregarded this theory. Satellite data and the last known position of the aircraft led retired U.S. Lieutenant General Thomas McInerney to suspect that MH370 was flown to Pakistan in preparation for a possible assault on the U.S. or its allies. Inmarsat, however, refuted this and said the plane went down in the southern Indian Ocean. There were rumors that the disappearance was connected to the 20 Freescale semiconductor personnel that were on board, and that they might have important industry secrets. The U.S. government may have hijacked the aircraft, according to rumors, to keep these information from getting to China.
That's all we have is theories at this point, man. We're nowhere near closer now than we were back when it happened, I don't think. Or at least we haven't been given any updates that says otherwise, so you have to go with what you have, and right now we don't have any new information.
Alternative theory held that the jet was hijacked by the Chinese government in order to question the Freescale personnel about U.S. espionage. There is another argument that suggests Iranian. Citizens gained entry to Freescale's technical expertise by using passports that were stolen. Freescale verified that the personnel on board were technical staff members who were en route to an evaluation site for semiconductor manufacturing. A semiconductor patent that was unrelated to military use was cited by conspiracy theorists. Remarkably, the missing plane did not contain any of the 4 patent holders. A cyber hijack has also been taken into consideration. Security specialist Hugo Teso gave a demonstration of how to use an Android phone and a bespoke app to hack virtual planes. The Independent called this discovery terrifying. Expert in counterterrorism Dr. Sally Leavesley proposed that MH370 may be taken over by a USB stick or smartphone. On certified flight hardware, according to the FAA, such a hack is not conceivable. The autopilot can be overridden by the pilot if needed. Pilots would probably talk to each other or deal with the problem if hackers took over. Another option is a mechanical breakdown, or maybe there was some involvement from Captain Zahari Ahmad Shah. According to flight safety expert Steve Landells, no theory has been able to satisfactorily explain the loss of MH370. But what if the gains in aviation safety are not all that there is to see? Click subscribe to continue watching. At 12:41 a.m. local time, the aircraft took off from Kuala Lumpur International Airport. It was last picked up by military radar at 2:22 a.m. based on scant satellite data. The aircraft made mysterious twists and headed south for approximately 6 hours. A Boeing 777 can be steered in 3 different ways: manually with the control wheel, or via the autopilot and navigation computer. Why were there no radio communications if no one was available to fly? There are several electrical backup systems on the Boeing 777. A battery that was linked to the captain's instruments may be used to make an emergency call. In the event that it fails, a ram air turbine can supply electricity for necessities, such as a radio.
That's why I say I still look at the pilots. Pilot and the co-pilot. Not saying they did it, but with everything that they said, you know, the backup systems that were there available and different things that possibly weren't used, like, what does that scream to y'all? Like, maybe the pilot. And then with the stuff that, I'm getting ahead of myself because I've heard this story so much, but the things that they found in the home, yeah.
Pilots may have to escape in the event of a serious cockpit fire, although it is improbable that the aircraft could continue to fly for several hours after the incident. Still, it's disconcerting to wonder if Zahari Shah was at fault. There are very few pilot suicide events in history. Just 8 are listed by the U.S. Aviation Safety Network. The loss of MH370 resulted in important modifications to aviation safety. International Civil Aviation Organization, new criteria for tracking were put into place. Aircraft must now be tracked by airlines every minute if they are in distress and every 15 minutes otherwise. This should aid in averting disappearances in the future. The massive Indian Ocean search for MH370 involved multiple nations and incurred significant financial costs. In spite of this, the primary wreckage has not been located, and it is unclear why it vanished. Families of those on board continue to look for clarification and resolution. There is a lot of discussion surrounding the possibility that someone on board, possibly the captain, caused the disappearance on purpose. It's unsettling, implying difficult to understand premeditation and control. The mystery is heightened by the lack of a distress call and an obvious reason. Suicide by pilot is hardly common in aviation. When it does, there's usually a quick, straight crash. Though unusual for a suicide, MH370 continued to fly for hours, giving rise to a number of speculations regarding the pilot's motivations. The captain's flight simulator, which displays a path resembling that of MH370 as it entered the Indian Ocean, is one important piece of evidence. This implies preparation or practice. But why would this be the choice of a pilot who seems to be in no personal crisis? A research on pilot mental health was cited in the BBC MH370 program, which revealed that a significant portion of pilots suffered from depression. Although there is no clear connection to MH370, it does emphasize the pressures and mental health issues faced by pilots. The aviation community is a close-knit and encouraging group. Pilots have access to mental health resources and are subject to routine psychological exams.
Never heard of that or knew that before about pilots and their mental health. Never. That's something that should be talked about. If I'm a person taking flights, like, I should know how my pilots and their mental health is doing. Like, the company should know on a constant basis, is this person okay? Look how many passengers' lives you have in your hand. Like, no. This just added another layer, bro. I keep telling y'all it's going to be hard for me to get on a plane, and just hearing that makes it even harder.
Staff and passengers' top concerns are safety and well-being. Following aviation news, I find the loss of MH370 to be extremely worrisome. It is upsetting to think that a pilot might finish their adventure in the ocean, as this goes against both passenger trust and aviation standards. Vincent Lin and Richard Godfrey have invested a lot of time in this quest. Their common objective, locating MH370, is to operate independently. Godfrey examines WSPR transmissions, a kind of radio, transmission that is interfered with by big things like airplanes. He thinks that he can determine the plane's route by examining these interruptions. He proposes that the wreckage might be found with one more search in a designated location, roughly 970 miles west of Perth. Lin emphasizes on the history of the pilot, pointing out an unplanned diversion over Penang, the pilot's hometown. This provides a more intimate element, implying that Zahari Shah would have wished to make one more trip to his hometown. Lin bases his theory that the final location is within 186 miles of the anticipated route on data from the pilot's flight simulator. Like Richard Godfrey, Mike Lin seeks the truth with unwavering determination. Since the disappearance, they have accumulated a large amount of evidence. Lin thinks the pilot left anomalies in the satellite image by flying inside clouds, hiding the route. These irregularities imply that the last known location of the aircraft was near the pilot's hometown of Penang on the longitude. Experts assume the plane fell after running out of fuel, which is why the search for MH370 has concentrated on the seventh arc. Assuming an instantaneous high-speed dive that ought to have left debris behind, Lin contends that this idea is incorrect. However, no proof has been discovered. Since the plane is in a region with inadequate surveying and the current seventh arc focus is wrong, Lin requests that an international science review group evaluate the facts and suggest an alternative course of action. Locating MH370 entails more than just finding the missing plane. Resolving the unanswered questions that plague the families of the 239 passengers on board is the goal. The question is whether the captain was at fault for the plane's disappearance and who was in charge when it did so. In order to unravel this enigma and produce proof for the courts, the black box and wreckage are essential. The black boxes, or flight recorders, are essential to comprehending flight events, particularly accidents. The low underwater locating beacon, ULB, battery life of MH370 pose difficulties for the recorder search. Usually ranging up to 4,500 meters, these ULB signals have a detection range of 2,000 to 3,000 meters. The cockpit voice recorder, even if it is located, is lost and only retains 2 hours of data that are repeatedly erased. This was the case with Flight 370 when important things transpired more than 2 hours before the end. Calls to prolong the life of ULB batteries arose in response. Due in part to the 30-day beacon battery life, it took 2 years to locate recorders following the 2009 tragedy involving Air France. Flight 447. Suggestions to enhance a recorder's ejectable or extend battery life were proposed as early as 1987, but they weren't put into practice until after Flight 370. The European Aviation Safety Agency suggested a new, longer-range beacon for use on ocean flights by 2020, along with a requirement for ULB batteries to last 90 days. The Chicago Convention was revised in 2016 by the International Civil Aviation Organization to address the Flight 370 concerns. All new aircraft built after 2020 are required to carry cockpit voice recorders that can store a minimum of 25 hours of data covering every aspect of flight. After 2020, any new aircraft design that is authorized must have a way to retrieve flight recorders or data prior to sinking. Flight 370 and Air France 447 were mentioned in the 2015 safety recommendations issued by the U.S. National Transportation Safety Board. These comprised tamper-resistant flight recorders and transponders, crash-protected cockpit image recorders, and the ability to locate aircraft debris in isolated or underwater locations.